Now, what about column quality? Column quality helps you see the number of empty cells you have there, the number of whether you have errors in your data set. So you can see currently we don't have any errors, we don't have any empty cells. I think we have empty cells in the salary. You see that how many we have, what, 9 empty cells there. Yet this one too, you are supposed to ask the HR team why they have their salaries as empty. I mean, appearing as what? Empty. So we need to ask them. So that is how we operate in the real world as analysts. Okay. You have to always ask experts in the particular that deal with the particular data you're working on to get better information. So I don't really need column profile for this one. I only need the column quality. And for now, I'm going to, because for the sake of summation, because I want to sum the whole values to see the total salaries that have been given. Okay, so for now, I'll replace them with 0. But then I said in the real world, the wise thing to do is to ask first before you assign any value. Okay, so for the purpose of summation, I'm going to find null. I want to know if it's actually null because I can't really see it here. Okay, so I would have to click on my filter button and then I can see my null here. Sum is 0. That's cool. Then okay, good. So it means it's actually null. So I'm going to right click, replace values, find null, replace with 0. Click OK. Good. So now you can see now the empty has disappeared. It says valid 100%, no error. So that is how you also inspect your data set using column quality. Okay, good. I think we are done with this data set. Assuming that this one last thing, indexing. Assuming that this data set appeared and they didn't have employee ID. Okay, so they didn't have employee ID. So I'm going to remove this for now. And we want to make sure that the employees we are dealing with, okay, are unique. Okay, are unique. Usually, okay, when we are doing data modeling and you remove duplicates, you have unique values in your data set. It's advised that you create a new column using indexing for your column ID, okay, for your employee ID. Now we're going to use that ID, employee ID, as a foreign key in another table. Okay, because if it's the employee table, then it's going to be the primary key. So we'll use the ID in another table as a foreign key to create a relation between the employee table and probably the department table. Okay, so this data set, we are assuming that we don't have the employee ID. How do we create that manually in Power Query? You navigate to add column. You will see index column below the conditional column that we used. For index column, we can start from 0. So I click on 0 and then I have my index. It numbers the entire rows. Okay. I can also say I want to start from 1. Click on from 1 and then I start from 1. Assuming that I want to use a different way of indexing, I go to custom and then what is my starting index? Say probably 55. The increment should be 10. Click OK, and then I have my index column looking like this. You get it? Good. Now the next thing is probably we don't want Power BI or any of the analytic tool that we are using to sum the values in this column. So we want to add a prefix. Okay, so this is how we add prefix. The reason why we add prefix is to prevent the system from adding the values here because it's identifying it as whole numbers. So it will try adding it. Okay, so to prevent that, we add prefix. How do we add prefix? You may add prefix by using the company's initial. So we have made easy. right? That's the company. So we have ME, so which means we are going to add ME for each what row or each cell. Good. So we select the index 2, go to format. Remember, we are under add column. We don't want to add column, we want to just transform this column. I'm going to show you when you use add column what happens. Click on add prefix. The prefix I want to use here is ME. And I
Okay.
click OK. And then you see I have my ME55 ME. So made easy employee 55. You get it. Now you can see currently it has added new column. I don't want that. What I want is I want to transform the existing column. I select it, then I go to what? Add prefix. Where are you? Sorry, transform. Navigate to format. Add prefix. And then ME. Click OK. And that existing column is what is transformed. A new one is not created for me. You get it?
Okay.
Because the more you create columns, the more the larger the data set becomes and the more space it consumes. And that may impact your query speed. So you have to keep that in mind. So this is how you create, how do we call it? ID. So you then can change this to employee ID. So you have your employee ID. You see? So this is how to manually create an employee ID for your data set. But before you do this, you have to be very careful. Note that anytime you create an index, it assumes that each row is unique. Okay, so always make sure that your rows are unique before you create an index for it.
Okay.
Now, I don't want this. This is just for the purpose of teaching indexing. So I'm going to take this off. So I get my data back to its original state. I need my employee ID, and that is it. So we are good to go now. We can now load this data set because we are done. Now, this data set is huge. So when you're loading data, we have two ways of doing it. We have close and load to. We have close and load and close and load to. Now, close and load to, you specify where you want to paste your data. Close and load would automatically create a new worksheet for you. So I'm going to, that is what happens. So I'm going to use close and load to show you something. Already we know close and load will create a new worksheet and paste our data set there. Now, the close and load to says that select how you want to view this data in your workbook. If I select existing worksheet, it means that I want to paste my data in the existing worksheet. By doing so, I might specify where I want to paste the data. So I can paste the data just beside the original one. But the data set, remember the data set is huge. So you might want to send it to a new worksheet before you work on that data. But for the purpose of this training, okay, if you want to send it to new worksheet, you just click on new worksheet. When I click OK, a new worksheet will be created and the data will be loaded there. For now, I want to use the existing worksheet because I don't want it to conflict with the other data sets there. So I want it in the same worksheet. But note, what Power Query does is it will still identify them as two separate data sets, even when you paste it in the same worksheet. So I can click OK. Now, I'm not going to click OK now. I have to first select existing worksheet, then specify where I want to paste the data. So I'm going to select K. I need to make sure I'm at the right place. So K6, select that, cell K6, then click OK. As you see, there's a problem with this formula. Not trying to type a formula in a minute. Let me do that again. Clear everything here. Existing worksheet, K6, and click OK. So that is it. Now, when you paste your query, this queries and connection section will open for you. Okay. Queries and connection section will open for you. Okay. So assuming that you want to navigate back to your Power Query, assuming you forgot something and you want to do the changes, you can just double click on this and you go back to Power Query Then you do the transformation you want to implement. Now I don't want to do
Okay.
anything, so I'll just close it. Now I have my clean data here sitting nicely. I'll just close this because I don't need it. Then it's sitting nicely next to the original data. Now, another reason why we are using Power Query to clean data is this. When you clean data in Excel, it doesn't store your previous query, but in Power Query, it does. I'm going to copy a portion of the old data set for you to appreciate the reason why we are using Power Query and the main reason why um, Microsoft created Power Query in the first place, because they wanted to automate data analysis processes. You don't have to be doing the
Mm.
same thing over and over and over again. So you just copy this. I'm going to paste it under it at 233, it's 83. Paste this. So now I'm assuming that a new data set has come in. Okay. So I paste the data
Okay.
here. Then I'll navigate to my old data. Just select here and right click and click on refresh. And automatically, remember, we had implemented remove duplicates in Power Query, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it has
Yeah.
identified that the data we pasted here is a duplicate. So even though we pasted the data under it, it still rejected the data. It did not approve it or add it to the existing data table. You get that? So I have to
Okay.
change the employee ID for Power Query to know that this is a new data that has come in. So I'm going to paste this here and change the ID to 6. Okay, just the 5 to 6. Okay.
Okay.
Now I'll navigate back to my query. Click in here, right click, and click on refresh. Okay. So you can see
Mm-hmm.
it has still, I don't know, maybe there's one there that, let me change the employee ID entirely.